What is egoism? Etymologically speaking, egoism comes from the word ego, a Latin for I. Broadly construed, therefore, egoism refers to the theory that one's self is, or should be, the motivation and the goal of one's own action. Egoism has two variants, namely, descriptive and normative. Sometimes referred to as positive egoism, the descriptive variant conceives egoism as a factual description of human affairs. This means people are motivated by their own interests and desires, and they cannot be described otherwise. The normative variant, on the other hand, proposes that people should be so motivated, regardless of what presently motivates their behavior. The most popular variety of descriptive egoism is psychological egoism, which simply claims that whatever a human being does, the ultimate aim is self-benefit. If psychological egoism is correct, it means that even when people appear to act for others' benefit, with no concern for themselves, which is called altruism, they are actually doing it for their own sake. It doesn't mean that anyone is necessarily trying to be deceptive or pretending to help others, although that's a possibility, of course. Hence, psychological egoists would say that people may act altruistically because it will be good for them in the long run, or because it makes them feel good when they do it. There are at least two main categories of psychological egoism, namely, desire-based and objective. On the one hand, desire-based psychological egoism says that humans are always doing what they desire. For example, even if you say you don't want to do your homework, you do choose to do it. You have the option to not do it and suffer the consequences. So, you do desire to do your homework, just not for its own sake. On the other hand, as the name suggests, objective psychological egoism claims that we are always pursuing certain objectives. Some say we always act for pleasure. Others argue that we always pursue whatever we think will bring us the most benefit. Normative egoism has something to do with what humans ought to do. There are two types of normative egoism, namely, ethical egoism and rational egoism. On the one hand, ethical egoism says that a moral action is egoistic action, and one should always act morally or egoistically. On the other hand, rational egoism says that a rational action is egoistic action, and one should always act rationally or egoistically. Ethical egoists may argue that you cannot know what is best for anyone but yourself, and so it is immoral to try. If you try to act in reference to other people's interests, rather than your own, you can easily do things those people wouldn't want, mess up other people's lives, or just violate their right to decide what happens to them, which would be immoral. Ethical egoists also might argue that human beings are dependent on one another for survival, therefore, it is your moral obligation to take care of yourself first, so that others don't have to, and so that you have the ability to take care of them. In other words, what's in your best interests is ultimately in everybody's best interests. And this brings us to rational egoism, which assumes that we should act rationally, which is egoistically. As is well known, the most famous rational egoist is Ayn Rand. She argued strongly against sacrificing one's own interests for others. She argued that not taking full advantage of one's own freedom is immoral because it opposes the natural fulfillment of human potential, which is the best thing for everyone in a society. For example, if I don't work as hard as possible for my own personal success, then I might fail to accomplish many things that would be good for the world.